Hello, welcome to Biology, the scientific study of life. The prostate gland is the largest of the semen secreting glands. It secretes its products directly into the urethra through several small ducts. Prostatic fluid is thin and milky. It contains anticoagulant enzymes and citric as sperm nutrient. The prostate gland is the source of some of the most common medical problems of men over age 40, benign non-cancers. Enlargement of the prostate occurs in more than half of all men in this age group and in virtually all men over 70. Prostate cancer is one of the most common cancers in men. It is treated surgically or with drugs that inhibit gonadotropins, resulting in reduced prostate activity and size. The paraurethral glands are a pair of small glands along the urethra below the prostate. Before ejaculation, they secrete a clear mucus that neutralizes acidic urine remaining in the urethra. Paraurethral fluid also carries some sperm released before ejaculation, which is one reason for the high failure rate of the withdrawal method of birth control. Semen in the female reproductive tract. A man usually ejaculates 2 to 5 milliliters of semen, and each milliliter may contain 50 to 130 million sperm. Once in the female reproductive tract, prostaglandins in the semen cause thinning of the mucus at the opening of the uterus and stimulate contractions of the uterine muscles, which help move the semen up the uterus. The alkalinity of the semen helps neutralize the acidic environment of the vagina, protecting the sperm and increasing their motility. When first ejaculated, the semen coagulates, making it easier for uterine contractions to move it along. Then anticoagulants liquefy the semen, and the sperm begin swimming through the female tract. A penis. The human penis is composed of 3 cylinders of spongy erectile tissue derived from modified veins and capillaries. During sexual arousal, the erectile tissue fills with the blood from the arteries. As this tissue fills, the increasing pressure cells of the veins that drain the penis, causing it to engorge with the blood. The resulting erection is essential to insertion of the penis into the vagina. Rodents, raccoons, whales, and several other mammals also possess a baculum upon that is contained in and helps stiffen the penis. Temporary impotence, a reversible inability to achieve an erection, can result from alcohol consumption, certain drugs, and emotional problems. Several drugs and pineal implant devices are available for men with non-reversible impotence due to nervous system or circulatory problems. The oral drug Viagra promotes the action of the local regulator nitric oxide in all, enhancing relaxation of smooth muscles in the blood vessels of the penis. This allows blood to enter the erectile tissue and sustain an erection. The main shaft of the penis is covered by relatively thick skin. The head or glans penis has a much thinner covering and the consequently more sensitive to stimulation. The human glans is covered by a fold of skin called the foreskin or prepuce, which may be removed by circumcision. A human sexual response, as mentioned earlier, many animals have elaborate mating behavior. The arousal of sexual interest in humans is even more complex, involving a variety of physiological as well as physical factors. Nevertheless, a human sexual response is characterized by a common physiological pattern. 2 types of physiological reactions predominate in both sexes: vasoconstriction, the filling of a tissue with the blood caused by increased blood flow through the arteries of that tissue, and myotin, and myotonia, increased muscle tension, both skeletal and smooth muscle may show sustained or rhythmic contractions, including those associated with orgasm. The sexual response cycle can be divided into 4 phases: existment, plateau, orgasm, and resolution. An important function of the existment phase is preparation of the vagina and penis for coitus, sexual intercourse. During this phase, vasoconstriction is particularly evident in erection of the penis and clitoris, enlargement of the testes, labia, and breasts, and vaginal lubrication. Myotonia may occur, resulting in nipple erection or tension of the arms and legs. In the plateau phase, these responses continue in females. The outer third of the vagina becomes vasoconstricted, while the inner 2/3 slightly expands. This change, coupled with the elevation of the uterus, forms a depression that receives the sperm at the back of the vagina. Breathing increases and heart rate rises, sometimes to 150 beats per minute, not in response to the physical effort of sexual activity, but as an involuntary response to stimulation of the autonomic nervous system. Orgasm is characterized by rhythmic, involuntary contractions of the reproductive structures in both sexes. Male orgasm has 2 stages. Emission is the contraction of the glands and ducts of the reproductive tracts, which forces semen into the urethra. Expulsion or ejaculation occurs when the urethra contracts and the semen is expelled. During female orgasm, the uterus and outer vagina contract, but the inner 2/3 of the vagina do not. Orgasm is the shortest phase of the sexual response cycle, usually lasting only a few seconds in both sexes. Contractions occur at about 0.8 second intervals and may involve the anal sphincter and several abdominal muscles. The resolution phase completes the cycle and reverses the response of the earlier stages. Vasoconstricted organs return to their normal size and color, and muscles relax. Most of the changes of the resolution are completed in 5 minutes. Loss of penile and clitoral erection, however, may take longer, and initial loss of erection is rapid in both sexes, but a return of the organs to their non-aroused size may take as long as an hour. In humans and other mammals, a complex interplay of hormones regulates gametogenesis. How exactly are gametes produced in the mammalian body? The process gametogenesis is based on meiosis, but details differ in females and males. Oogenesis is the development of mature ova, egg cells. Sperm atogenesis, the production of mature sperm cells, is a continuous and prolific process in the adult male. Each ejaculation of a human male contains 100 to 650 million sperm cells, and males can ejaculate daily with little loss of fertilizing capacity. Spermatogenesis occurs in the seminiferous tubules of the testes. Oogenesis differs from spermatogenesis in 3 major ways. First, during the mitotic divisions of oogenesis, cytokinesis is unequal, with almost all the cytoplasm monopolized by a single daughter cell. The secondary oocyte, this large cell can go on to become the ovum. The other products of meiosis, smaller cells called polar bodies, degenerate. By contrast, in spermatogenesis, all products of meiosis develop into mature sperm. Second, although the cells from which sperm develop continue to divide by mitosis through the male's life. This is thought not to be the case for oogenesis in the human female. Third, oogenesis has long-resting periods, in contrast to spermatogenesis, which produces mature sperm from precursor cells in an unitropted sequence. The reproductive cycles on females. In females, the secretion of hormones and the reproductive events they regulate are cyclic, whereas males produce sperm continuously. Females release only one egg or a few eggs at a specific time during each cycle. Hormone control of the female cycle is complex. Menstrual versus estrous cycles. Two different types of cycles occur in females, mammals, humans, and certain other primates have menstrual cycles, whereas other mammals have estrous cycles. In both cases, ovulation occurs at a time in the cycle after the endometrium lining of the uterus has started to thick and develop a rich blood supply, preparing the uterus for the possible implantation of an embryo. One difference between the two types of cycles involves the fate of the uterine lining, or if pregnancy does not occur. In menstrual cycles, the endometrium is shed from the uterus through the cervix and vagina in a bleeding called menstruation. In estrous cycles, the endometrium is reabsorbed by the uterus and no extensive bleeding occurs. Other major distinctions include more pronounced behavioral changes during estrous cycles than during menstrual cycles, and stronger effects of season and climate on estrous cycles, whereas human females may be receptive to sexual activity throughout their menstrual cycles. Most mammals will copulate only during the period surrounding ovulation. This period of sexual activity, called estrus, from the Latin ostros, patium, is the only time of the condition of the vagina permits mating. Estrus is sometimes called heat, and indeed the female's body temperature increases slightly. The length and frequency of reproductive cycles vary widely among mammals. The human menstrual cycle averages 28 days, although cycles vary, ranging from about 20 to 40 days. In contrast, the estrous cycle of the rat is only 5 days. Bears and dogs have one cycle per year. Elephants have several. The human female reproductive cycle, all closer look. Let's examine the reproductive cycle of the human female in more detail as a case study of how complex function is coordinated by hormones. The term menstrual cycle refers specifically to the changes that occur in the uterus. Therefore, it is also called the uterine cycle. It is caused by cyclic events that occur in the ovaries. That is by the ovarian cycle. Thus, the female reproductive cycle is actually one integrated cycle involving two organs, the uterus and the ovaries. As shown in this figure, human oogenesis. The hormones at the top levels of control of this dual cycle are the same brain hormones that control the male reproductive system. These hormones are gonadotropin releasing hormone GnRH, secreted by the hypothalamus, and the gonadotropins follicle stimulating hormone FSH and luteinizing hormone LH, secreted by the anterior pituitary. The concentrations of FSH and LH in the blood control the reproduction of two kinds of steroid hormones that are made in the ovaries, estrogen, actually a female of closely related hormones, and progesterone, the ovarian cycle of hormone production, in turn controls the uterine cycle of the endometrial growth and loss. The outcome is that ovarian follicle growth and ovulation are synchronized with preparation of the uterine lining for possible implantation of an embryo. Notice also the ovarian cycle. Let's begin with start 1. The cycle begins with the release from the hypothalamus of GnRH, which is to stimulate the pituitary to secrete small amounts of FSH and LH. The FSH, true of its name, stimulates follicle growth, aided by LH, and for the cells of the growing follicles start to make estrogen. Notice in this figure that there is a slow rise in the amounts of estrogen secreted during most of the follicular phase, the part of the ovarian cycle during which follicles are growing, and oocytes maturing. Several follicles begins to grow with each cycle, but usually only one matures, that others disintegrate. The low levels of the estrogen inhibit secretion of the pituitary hormones, keeping the levels of FSH and LH relatively low. The levels of FSH and LH, however, shot up sharply when 5 and secretion of estrogen by the growing follicle begins to rise steeply, whereas a low level of estrogen inhibits the secretion of the pituitary gonadotropins. A high concentration has the opposite effect. It stimulates the secretion of gonadotropins by acting on the hypothalamus to increase its output of GnRH. Notice 6 also. Again, you can see this response in this figure as a step in increases in FSH and LH levels that occurs soon after that increase in the concentration of estrogen indicates in this figure. The effect is greater for LH because the high concentration of estrogen also increases the sensitivity of LH in releasing cells in the pituitary to GnRH. By now, the follicles can respond more strongly to LH because more of their cells have receptors for this hormone. The increase in LH concentration caused by increased estrogen secretion from the growing follicle is an example of positive feedback. The LH induces final maturation of the follicle. 7. Notice that the maturing follicle develops in an internal fluid filled cavity and grows very large, forming a bulge near the surface of the ovary. The follicular phase ends about a day after the LH surge. With ovulation, the follicle and adjacent wall of the ovary rupture, releasing the secondary oocyte. 8. Notice that following ovulation during the luteal phase of the ovarian cycle, LH stimulates the transformation of the follicular tissue left behind the ovary to form the corpus luteum, a glandular structure. LH is named for the LH during this phase of the ovarian cycle. The corpus luteum secretes progesterone and estrogen. The levels of the progesterone and estrogen rise. The combination of these hormones exerts negative feedback on the hypothalamus and pituitary, inhibiting the secretion of LH and FSH. Near the end of the luteal phase, the corpus luteum disintegrates, causing concentration of estrogen and progesterone to decline sharply. The dropping levels of the ovarian hormones liberate the hypothalamus and pituitary from the inhibitory effects of these hormones. The pituitary can then begin to secrete enough FSH to stimulate the growth of new follicles in the ovary, initiating the next ovarian cycle. The uterine menstrual cycle, the hormones secreted by the ovaries, estrogen and progesterone, have major effects on the uterus. Estrogen secreted in increasing amounts by growing follicle signals and the endometrium to thicken. In this way, the follicular phase of the ovarian cycle is coordinated with the proliferative phase of the uterine cycle. Before ovulation, the uterus is already being prepared for a possible embryo. After ovulation, 9. Notice estrogen and progesterone secreted by the corpus luteum stimulate continual development and maintenance of the endometrium, including enlargement of arteries and growth of endometrial glands. These glands secrete nutrients fluid